Back on Tennis Channel Live, the sports world reacting to the spread of coronavirus. As you can see, the NBA has suspended its season. Major League Soccer has suspended its season for 30 days. College basketball conference tournaments have been canceled, and much, much more. This is a developing situation. We are going to welcome back in John Wertheim from Sports Illustrated, 60 Minutes, and of course, Tennis Channel to talk about all this. John, welcome back. Since the last time we spoke, a lot has changed. What's your reaction to the last 24 hours?
Was it only 24 hours ago? I mean, this is the rare time when events may be going even faster than the news cycle. And boy, everyone's scrambling right now. I mean, we are just in uncharted terrain, and people are making decisions on the fly, and we see how profoundly the sports world is impacted. In the last 24 hours, what we've had are athletes that now have tested positive. That's a big difference. That's a pivot point, and that's why the NBA right now is suspended, Steve.
Tennis specifically, we heard the news from the ATP this morning. They are suspending play for the next 6 weeks. What do you make of that decision?
You know, it's interesting, Steve. Over the weekend, I heard that players wanted Indian Wells to continue on, even if it was behind closed doors, even if there were no fans. Let's hold the tournament. In a few days later, I heard it was the players that was really driving this decision to suspend tennis. And I think the players are realizing, look, we travel, we are on planes probably more than any other athlete in the world. We share one locker room. All it takes is for one coach, one parent, one stringer to have an infection, and suddenly we all are coming down with this. I mean, now that the travel ban went into play on Wednesday night, it really was fait accompli. Again, we will have a 6-week pause. The players will have to scramble and figure out how to spend these next 6 weeks, and we hope that we will have tennis after that. But right now, pump the brakes.
So, John, that's the ATP saying suspended for 6 weeks. The ITF has come out. They're saying suspended through April 20th. We have not heard so far from the WTA. We always talk about the need for a tennis commissioner, a governing body, somebody to put all these groups together. What do you make of the fact that the ATP and WTA have not come out together with a joint statement?
Yeah, as you say, it shows something other than unity. I mean, it's very hard to imagine that the women are going to continue, but the men are not. I mean, one thing that I would stress is that a lot of this is embedded in contractual language, and there are insurance policies that have to be considered. And are the players stopping, or the tours stopping, or the individual events stopping? I mean, there's a lot that has to be negotiated. Obviously, the two tours, to some extent, have different events, different promoters. It would have been nice if there had been a statement to cover all of tennis, especially at a time when we are asking for unity. And yet I cannot imagine that the women are not going to follow suit. The idea that the men would take this 6-week hiatus and the women wouldn't is really not realistic.
John, as we know, there's different levels of players. I mean, at the top of the ATP, there's guys that make hundreds of millions of dollars. They can not work and be fine. There are also players that use this as their livelihood, and they need this money from tournaments. How are different types of players dealing with this right now?
Yeah, it's a great question, and social media gives us some indication of that. But I've heard everything from, you're right, that the top players who are fortunate enough to have the means, they've earned that, let's be clear, but they're having a much easier time getting home. They are not in scramble mode. Other players I've heard, especially that aren't in the U.S. and that are in the U.S. now but aren't from here, they don't know whether they can get back to their home countries. I've heard of players calling academies in Florida and saying, listen, can you cut me a deal for the next few weeks? Can I come to Florida and train? You see a lot of players that are either scrambling to get to the airport and beat this travel ban, or else they're trying to be creative and figure out, what am I going to do for the next 6 weeks here, especially if I can't cross an ocean? So very different responses from players at different ends of the spectrum, as you say, Steve.
Yeah, very tough situation. Overall, John, where do you think tennis stacks up with other sports in terms of its response so far to the coronavirus?
Yeah, I think you have to consider tennis, that, right, they're not guaranteed contracts. These players, you eat what you kill, so the players have to go out there. They're really taking a financial hit. You have to look at these as two tours, but also a series of individual events. And the promoter in country X might have a much different set of priorities. He might have a much different insurance policy than another promoter. Players are spending a lot of time on planes. They are not flying privately as, say, NBA teams are. And I think that is a big factor here, too. I think these players really thought about this and said, wait a second, I'm supposed to get on a plane once a week. I don't know who I'm sitting next to. I don't know who my colleagues are sitting next to. And then we're all supposed to come to the same locker room. that's a recipe for disaster. I give the players a lot of credit here, Steve. I think they've also come to this conclusion that, look, we need to have this abundance of caution. We need to think long-term, and we're going to put aside some short-term economic gain to really think about what's the best course of action. I think overall the players have behaved very responsibly.
Yeah, as we've seen in soccer, as we've seen in the NBA, once the players get it, the concept of not having fans in the tournament doesn't matter anymore because this can be passed from person to person. What do you think are the next steps? I mean, 6 weeks. Could this go longer? Could this affect our next major championships?
We know nothing. I mean, this is absolutely unprecedented. And we've had other crises in the past, and we have other unexpected. I mean, you look at insurance policies, and you look at, they have clauses in there for terrorism. They have clauses in there for fires. This is completely unprecedented. You hope that eventually, to use the voguish phrase, we hope this curve will flatten. We look at some countries, Singapore, South Korea, that have done a good job of containing this, and we hope that we reach this point. But right now, on the second Thursday in March, who knows? It would be wonderful if 6 weeks from now we got back to our lives and we saw this curve go down and we could play the French Open and get on with things. But I just feel like right now we all need to respect the unknown because we are in a place right now where no one knows what's coming next.
Yeah, respect the unknown. Wise words, John. And certainly take care. Be safe yourself. And look forward to speaking to you once again tomorrow. We'll see what else transpires before then.